So I came out yesterday evening, Saturday evening, and it was just swarmed with people with multiple wedding parties.
Take a million pictures. Oh yeah.
Had a tripod sticking out of my backpack. I'm pretty sure everyone thought I was here to photograph some wedding party. Although it was beautiful, the sun was out, crickets were going crazy. It's very early this morning. I'm quite tired, but it's a perfect time to be out here to do this in this kind of cool pavilion that they have here. When I first started my Doodaddiest project, I told people I was doing some electronic music on the side. I think most people assumed I was doing EDM or DJing. So I suppose there are a lot of reasons people set out to make music. Fame, fortune, getting the ladies, I don't know. When I started my Doodaddiest project, I was, driven by learning these new processes, new devices, new ways of creating sound. And it kind of dawned on me that there was a big correlation between what I was doing and this concept of humanism. There's an idea of benevolence. Oh my goodness. Well, this is insane. So along the way, I kind of came up with this moniker. I call it Electro Humanism. And it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but also relevant, I think, to lens that I look through and how I kind of structure my life. And that affects how I do the music that I do. Back in the day, I did study some philosophy. I was attracted to some of the ideas around humanism. You structure your life around ideas of rationality as opposed to the supernatural. There's a layer of benevolence and kindness to humanistic thought, which I think is based on seeing other people as your equals. And there's a real premium put on the pursuit of knowledge, and that as we share these ideas back and forth, that the human race evolves and progresses, and you can lift the human spirit by pursuing new ideas and through creativity. And I'm sure that's why you find a lot more liberal-oriented or humanistic thinkers within the arts, whether it's music, design, photography, architecture, because there's definitely that sharing of ideas, the pushing of each other to come up with new and novel concepts. And none of this is to discount the idea of mystery or the unknowns. I like to think about Bach and how transcendent his music can be, and how it definitely can point to the other. Yet his music is so mathematical. Certainly there are things that we don't know, and I don't think suggesting that you order your life around rationalism is to deny any of that mystery. That's a pretty cool building. Apparently there's a 25-foot gap towards the top that is to allow the wind to pass through the building and cut down on the sway. Yeah, so it breaks my heart that in spite of all the amazing things that humanity can do when it comes together, that there's still such stupidity, cruelty in the world. Yeah, that guy, seriously. Oh look, the Apple Store. So the way I'm structuring these videos right now is the first few minutes are a bit of a monologue, a setup, some reflections, deep thoughts with your friend Brian. The glorious victories, the agonies of defeat. And then at a certain point, a few more minutes in, I'm gonna switch and go to more of the technical deep dive stuff. So the idea is if you're not into the technical things, maybe the opening bits more about life in general, being a creative, specifically being a composer might be interesting, but if you're not really interested in the technical stuff, you can skip it. Or if you want to skip the monologue, you don't really care what I am talking about and listening to me yap, you can skip ahead. I'm going to put a link below to the time code. And I'm still not getting used to doing the monologues, because to me it's really just a fancy way of describing some weird guy over talking to himself to a camera on a tripod. It's a little strange, but getting used to it. What I'm going to do today, which is break down my live setup. There are a lot of different ways to perform electronic music live. There's the standard DJing where you're just playing back a pre-recorded track. Some guys use a hybrid where they might have live running on a laptop and they're playing back some stems, but also sending some MIDI or information to some hardware devices. And I was early on attracted to more of a straight live performance idea where you've got a sequencer and you're playing hardware boxes, whether it's in a modular or synthesizers or whatever, drum machines. So I've kind of pursued that avenue. I think it's certainly more exciting or treacherous as a performer. And when I go see artists, I definitely enjoy more of the Colin Benders or Caterina Barbieri approach. It feels like more of a performance to me, and I just appreciate what's happening. So I've been going down that road. I have a small modular set up with a couple other external things, some of the Monomy devices. So I'll probably do it as a series. Today, I think I'm just going to walk you through the setup, and then maybe in the next video, I'll actually dig into how some of my sequences are arranged, and maybe then how I use Max MSP on a computer, but it's solely doing the visuals that are reacting to the audio in real time. So that's the idea. So within this wall, this section right here, just this travel suitcase, is my performance rig. And then I have these various controllers that are hooked up to some modules. And then Monomy Norns, which is kind of a multi-purpose magical audio box. And then I have the Arturia keyscape and the Modular NFM1. I'm not sure you can see that very well, but so I'm using the Modular and the keyscape to do some polyphonic type parts, because I do like to play the keys, play the keyboards, so I can express myself on the keys with that, and then I'll kind of walk you through the rest of it. So the heart of the operation is the Monomy teletype, and it's kind of a programmable, I don't know what you would call it. It's a brain, but it acts as the nervous system to all the sequencing and some of the other things that are going on. It's hooked up in the background to some other Monomy modules, and then also to orthogonal devices 301, which is down here. The essence of the system is that I have 4 monophonic voices happening. They're all coming out of the Ansible module, which is connected to this grid. I think I only use it in the Kriya mode, which is a 4-track sequencer. And then the teletype is telling the Kriya what pattern to play, which sequence to go to. So that's all, so it's kind of driving the show. And this grid is controlling the teletype on this side. So I switch between presets here, and then this half of this grid is set up using the grid ops that Scanner Darkly did, and that is controlling the ER301, which I have doing a few things. It's got 2 different granular loopers basically that are constantly recording. Well, I put them into record with these buttons, but it's constantly recording whatever I feed into it, and I can feed it signal if I hit the Q buttons on my mixer, which I'll get to in a little bit. But the reason that's important is because I wanted my set not to just be this static one-trick pony that kind of set up and grooved out on the thing for 45 minutes, but I wanted to have distinct tracks and movements. So I go in like a 45 to an hour set, I'll go through 6 or 7 different tracks. And the tough part of performing on the modular is transitioning from one to the other. So the trick I use to do that is, as I'm playing one track, I'll send some of the random tracks from within that song, or whatever you want to call it, into the looper, and I control where it is in the loop and how short the granular bit is with faders on this fader module. And then I have those coming back. I can fade them in and out to create like an ambient cloud or an ambient section that then I can then shut everything else down, switch what I need to switch, and then fade the new one up as I fade out that ambient stuff. And it works really well. So I've got Kriya that's sending out 4 lanes of note information. 3 of them go to the Synthesis Tech VCO that's got 4 independent voices. So the first 2 are monophonic, and then the 3rd voice is getting the same information as the 4th voice, but I have the 4th one pitched up a 5th so that it gets that stereotypical synth interval going on. Those 3 voices plus the interval are going into 1 channel each of the Schweiman QMMF4. So I'm using 3 of those filters, which are great because they're all switchable between low pass, band pass, high pass, so that's very flexible. And then I'm using a quadra to do envelopes for each of those, and the 4th quadra is also affecting the filter of the third voice. So those are 3 of the voices, and then the 4th voice, which is pretty much my bass on most tracks, is the Schweiman BLD, the bass lead drum generator, which is very nice. So those are the 4 monophonic voices. And then I have sync information coming out of the teletype, going into the Arturia. And that is, depending on the song, or whatever we call these things, I'm either using it as an arpeggiator, have it on hold, and I can play different chords to get arpeggiated, or some of them, I have a sequence programmed into it, and it'll just play that sequence. And then I can, mess with the Modular a little bit. I usually play with the envelopes and the filters a little bit. Those are the 3 voices up here. The 4th voice, which is the bass, polyphonic. So, and on my mixer, the performance mixer here is kind of the heart of the audio operation. And so I have it 1, 2, 3 coming in here, and then my my bass, my arpeggio coming from the keyboard, and Modular is coming in here. And then I have the 2 granular ambient tracks on 7 and 8. So that's kind of the melodic stuff. And then for the rhythmic elements, everything is being programmed from the variegate, and the voltage block is sending out some modulation for each one. So the variegate is playing the 2 HP kick, which is awesome because you can control the sustain, the decay of it, and also I have it set up so that it's getting similar pitch information to whatever my kick is getting. So, and that's coming from the teletype. So depending on the track, you'll either hang on the root note and it'll be in the same key, or it might move, as the chords change. So it's really nice because if you draw in, let the decay really come in and ring out, you can fill the subs in if there's some nice bass in the venue that you're playing. And it's a great way to just fill out the lows. And that's going to always be in the same key as your track, so that works really well. Then it's playing a hat module, the tip-top hat module. Oh no, the tip-top clap. The hat is another 2 HP. So I have a hi-hat coming in on 5, claps on 6, and then I'm also using, in addition to the granular things going on in the 301, I also have some drum samples loaded in there, and those drum samples also get programmed from here, and that just gives me a little wider palette of drum sounds. Typically some other kick and snares and some cymbals and things that I can call on. I'm going to now describe kind of a tricky aspect of how this is working that's really given me the sound that I wanted, and that is I have a sidechain thing happening between the kick and snares going against everything else. So what's happening is the kick module and then the kick and snare from the 301, those are getting submixed into this IntelliGel mix-up, is that what it's called, module? So it has a mute on it. and volume, and those get fed in as an additional input that goes straight to the outputs on the mixer. But then I also have that multed into the WMD compressor. Okay, so the kick and snare are going straight out through the mixer to the outs, but everything else, all the melodic parts and some of the percussion parts, unfortunately, that's the only catch in this, but all the melodic parts are then going out of the send and receive to my compressor, which is getting sidechained. So I can sidechain all the melodic stuff however much I want with the kick and snare. So that gives it so much extra glue and so much more. I mean, that's such a common electronic music sound, that pumping. So it's really nice to achieve that. And then from there, on the way out, it all goes through the Overseer filter. It's like a DJ style filter. So if you go up, you get a high pass. If you go down, you get a low pass. So that's a nice effect to have on the whole mix. Okay, so we got the melodic parts with the bass, percussion, and then one area where what the voltage block is really doing is two of my percussion channels are playing these noise engineering modules, the Silimus Iteratus alter, and then the other one, the Manus Iteratus. I don't know how to say that. And I bring those in and out, and depending on how long my set is, I'll improvise more with those, and I'll kind of play with that in a little bit. But that's probably the least used and probably the lamest part of this rig in terms of how I use it. I need to take more advantage of that. But that's everything. And then I have, for effects, I have the Audio Damage Reverb, which has a nice kind of shimmer reverb that I have it kind of set to. And then the Modcan Dual Delay, which is probably my favorite general stereo delay in eurorack. I mean, the Rainmaker is awesome, and the Dual Delay from 4MS, I mean, are all great, but this one just for pure sound, and it's got a nice filter on the delays, so it can be very, you can get resonance on it. I'll show you that too. Oh, you can hear it coming in already. So why don't I walk you through just a little bit and play a little bit, and you can hear some of the stuff that's going on. I'll just to give you an example. So this one is a little different because sometimes I can switch between different sequences on here as the thing plays. So when I want to change the chord that it's playing, but this one just goes back and forth between two chords on its own. And so this is my kick. Little reverb on that. And this is the third voice of coming from the Synth Tech VCO, and you can hear the interval on that, right? And I will use, I'm using my modulations a lot to affect the wave table of the VCO. It's not affecting that as much. So, but I usually tighten that up, more of a rhythmic part. But you can hear the envelope hitting that. Put it in bandpass mode, which is more typically how I'll use it, so it doesn't take up as much space. Almost like another rhythm part. Then this is the second voice. And I think I have, the Batumi is doing my kind of frequency modulation. And And I think you can hear that getting a little bit of waveform modulation going through the wavetable too. If I so you can hear it kind of going through the wavetable. And the arc is doing that. There, that was supposed to be changing back and forth. And then the last voice. And I also have frequency modulation going to that. And I think sometimes I'll do a little pulse width modulation on the, which is nice, which made it just go away. It's going in too much, huh? It's a little pulse modulation. It's not really doing what I want it to do. Let's snooze that. And then let's switch up the rhythm, so I'll bring a different. Let's hear that kick. So there you can really hear the low frequency it's talking about. But it can get muddy real fast if you're not careful. And then these are the sampled drums I was talking about. So I've got quite a bit of that compression happening. That's without it. And then I'll bring it in. It's very easy to overdo it. And I can mute things. And I'll mute things a lot over here as well. But that's the basic idea, that's the basic layout. So on the next video, I'm gonna, I'll get more into how the sequences are arranged, more how I use the granular stuff. That's probably enough for now. I could go on all day talking about this. So until next time, thank you.